Welcome on into the Kiwi Football Fix here on Sky Sport. What we do here is we shine a torch, a spotlight on everything New Zealand football, both here in New Zealand and New Zealand footballers abroad. It's the last episode of Season 1 of the Kiwi Football Fix, actually. A little bit sad to say so. But with the A-League drawing to a close this weekend, we thought we'd do the same, freshen things up in the off-season and come back and hit it hard in Season 2. And what a way to go out with a Wellington Phoenix stalwart, icon and former captain. We head to Australia right now and welcome in 273 games of experience for the Knicks, 358 A-League games. Andrew Durante, welcome to the Kiwi Football Fix, my friend.
Good morning. How are you, Goran?
Mate, I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing in retirement? Because it must be the strangest thing ever after playing for 2 decades at the highest level. All of a sudden, you're twiddling your thumbs. How are you coping?
Yeah, at the moment, I'm only a couple of weeks into it, so, I don't really know how I'm feeling at the moment. I kind of feel like I'm just in the off-season, and in a couple of months I'll be back training with the boys, so I don't think it's registered in my brain yet that, I've retired. I think once they get back on the training pitch or once the A-League starts again, I think I'll realise that, hey, I'm not involved for the first time in a long time, and, that'll probably hit me a little bit then.
How are you with your stats, Dura? Like, do you care that you are the record holder for Wellington Phoenix appearances, the highest number of appearances for an A-League player in general? Like, when you first set out in your career, did you want to achieve those sorts of milestones?
No, I think as a player, you never really set targets like that of, I want to play X amount of games. I just wanted to play as many games as I could and hoped my body was able to do that. And, when I got to the Phoenix, I, managed to play pretty much every game, nearly every season. So, that's all I wanted to do. I was the captain of the team, and I felt the best way to lead the team was to be on the pitch all the time. And, I really made a conscious effort to do that. I didn't know where it would lead me and how many games it would lead me to. But, yeah, like you said, 273 for one club is pretty rare these days. Not many players would achieve those things, especially here in Australia where you play, 20 to 25 games a season. So, yeah, I'm really proud of that. To be the highest A-League player on, I think you said 358, is really special. I had a couple of broken legs at the beginning of my career. That hindered me. 2005 was the first A-League season, and I missed the entire season of that with a broken leg. So to be able to get back from that and achieve so many games is something that, I look back on really fondly.
And when you suffer those nasty injuries so early on in your career, Dura, do you think that, well, maybe football isn't for me? Because we see it across football and rugby league and rugby. Kids who think that they've got a wonderful career ahead of them, they have to pull out and retire at an early age. Did you think that was maybe an option for you at one point in time?
Yeah, I definitely feared that could be an option. I debuted as a 19-year-old and then broke my leg 2 seasons later. Missed the Olympics, the Athens Olympics. I was in contention for that. So all of a sudden I'm thinking, maybe I'm not going to have a career in the game because maybe I'm one of those guys that's injury prone or has bad luck, and got myself back playing at the Newcastle Jets, and then broke my leg again for the second time 18 months later, and that one really hit me hard. I was really down from that, and I was living in Newcastle on my own, so it was a really dark period for me, and I knew what was ahead of me in terms of the rehab and the long process to get back from an injury. So that was a really hard time, a really big setback in my career, and I really did think, I don't know if I'm going to have a career in the game. So that's why when I talk about, having such a long career and playing now to 39, I look back and I think it's pretty amazing, to be honest, to be able to have done that after having such big setbacks at an early age. But I had a really good support around me. My family were amazing. If I didn't have them at the time and good positive people around me, then there's no way I could have got out of those, major setbacks and had the career I had.
Yeah, not only did you recover from those setbacks, but you went on to win the A-League title with the Newcastle Jets. Not only did you do that, in the final, you were best in show. You were the player of the match. So I'm wondering, how on earth did you go from being a Newcastle Jets A-League winner to all of a sudden thinking, hey, I'm going to go and move to Wellington and play for the Phoenix? What actually went on in your brain during that time to think that that was a good idea?
Yeah, it was a big shock for everyone. I don't think anyone really expected that. Midway through that season, that grand final winning season, the Knicks had approached me. They were really keen on my services. I knew from following that they had a really good team in terms of attacking. They had Smelty, they had a really good attacking, front three. But they leaked a lot of goals in defence, and I heard they were trying to sign John McCain at the time. Leo Burdos was another one that they wanted to add to the team, and I thought, you know what, these guys are trying to recruit some really strong players here, and I thought if I could go there and tidy up the defence, then I think the team could be actually quite good. And I was having some issues with the Jets at the time in terms of contract negotiations. They wanted to keep me, but they hadn't really budgeted for me, so the salary was actually less than what I was on at the time, and I wasn't on crazy money or anything like that. So I just felt a lot of love coming from the Phoenix. They were pushing hard for me. I had phone calls from Terry Serepisos, Tony Pinata, Ricky Herbert. They were pushing really hard, and I felt really, really wanted, and I felt I could make a big difference there. So yeah, after the grand final, I had a little think about it, and I decided that I think it was time for me to go on a new challenge and test myself in a different club. But I never thought I would have stayed there that long. I thought, you know what, I signed a 2-year deal. I'll sign 2 years. I spoke to my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and I said, let's go for a couple of years, see what it's like, and then we'll come back and back to Australia. But yeah, 11 years later, stayed there. Ended up captaining for 11 years. So I'm super proud and super glad that I did that move. I think I grew. As a player, as a captain, as a person, I grew massively over in Wellington, and I definitely have no regrets about my journey over there.
So initially you sign up, it's almost like a gap year or two. What kept on keeping you there then? Because I'm sure that there were multiple times where you needed to talk about contract situations. You've got family back in Australia that you'd like to get back to at some point. Why did you continue to stay?
Yeah, I just enjoyed it so much, and I felt a really big sense of responsibility there. Obviously, the captain of the football club, and that 2010 season, we had a fantastic season. We had sellout crowds in those semi-final games against Perth and Newcastle, and I was coming off contract, and it was an easy decision. I was loving life at the time. I was playing with a fantastic group of players, some guys that I ended up playing 6, 7, 8 years with. Manny Muscat, Vinny Leah, Sigmund, Paul Eiffel, Mossy. These guys are still lifelong friends. And, when you get to go to work every day and you're playing alongside really good mates, and the team was doing well. It wasn't like the team was a poor team. We were actually doing really well at the time. So the decisions were pretty easy. Contract talks were never difficult with the club. It was always quite an easy procedure. I never used an agent because I didn't feel I needed to. So the contract talks were always between myself and the CEO. And yeah, it was just a really smooth transition. There were offers elsewhere throughout my time in that 11 years. And there was actually a really tempting offer at one stage. But I just felt that, as the captain, I had a really big responsibility to lead this team. And I wanted to win something over in Wellington. Unfortunately, I didn't. But I loved trying and helping build that club.
In early 2010, you went very, very close with the Phoenix. You've already mentioned it. Those playoff games against Perth, the penalty shootout there, where I think you stepped up and took a penalty, even though you'd never practiced it. You managed to slot that one. Newcastle, and then going on to the prelim final against Sydney FC. I mean, those were some truly special times for the Wellington Phoenix, times that we haven't experienced again. Can you talk to us about that sort of 3-week period in the playoffs where New Zealand football as a whole, it really got in behind the Knicks?
Yeah, and I think that was coming off the back of the Bahrain qualifiers as well. So football in the country was just at its peak. The All Whites had qualified. They'd had that incredible game at Westpac Stadium against Bahrain. We had a great season. We got 24 or 25,000 for our first semi-final against Perth. Went to extra time, went to penalty shootouts, as you said. And then a couple of weeks later, we had our second semi, and we completely sold out Westpac Stadium, Sky Stadium now, but at the time Westpac Stadium, and incredible. I remember the build up to that week, and I just knew it was going to be such a massive week. The fans were, all out in the streets. There were Phoenix jerseys everywhere, and we were always going to win that game. With that home crowd behind you, we were so confident we were going to win that game, and to win it the way we did in extra time. Eiffel scoring that iconic goal and running down the other end of the stadium to celebrate with the fans, and that will always be an iconic moment in the club's history. And it was just a great time to be a part of the club, and a great time for football in the country. And I really do hope it can get back to that. And I think what they're doing at the moment is very, very good, and they're getting themselves back there. But yeah, I think Phoenix was peak, 2010, 2011 season.
Hey, Jared, tell us a little bit about Terry Serepisos, because he was the guy who essentially saved professional football in this country. Obviously, we had a tough time with the Kings and the Knights in Auckland. We had the opportunity to continue in the A-League with the New Zealand team, and Terry came to the fore and bankrolled the club in Wellington. What was it like having him as an owner? And then also, he was a TV star with The Apprentice. So you've got this guy who's kind of like he's a football club owner, and he's a local celebrity. Must have been a bit strange.
Yeah, he was. I think for a startup club, I think he was the perfect type of owner. He was flamboyant. He was out there. He always had model girlfriends hanging off him. He drove Ferraris. He had Lamborghinis. He had that playboy lifestyle. And, he was a fantastic owner. Like you said, he basically saved football in the country after those Auckland franchises folded, and, put a lot of his own money into the club for it to be successful. And, I think football in the country owes Terry a lot for keeping that afloat. And obviously he went through some financial hardships and had to relinquish the club, and Rob Morrison and the other guys took over, which was sad, but also great that football was staying on. But he was a great owner. I don't think you'd have an owner like that these days, who was so involved with the players. After a game, he'd be on the phone and say, "Durant, round the boys up, everyone to Red Square, where we're going for drinks." And, he'd be buying everyone shots, and, the Ricky Herbert would be there, and Tony Pignata, the CEO, would be there. And it was a really bizarre time, because it just wouldn't happen anymore, where the owner, the CEO, the coach, and all the players are just out drinking together. And, I think it really built a strong bond and strong camaraderie within the team. And I think that played a big role in our success, that we were also together, and there was no, there was a hierarchy, but there was no real dominance in a player could approach Terry at any time, and I think that really helped in how successful we were in those early years.
Did you ever get to go on The Apprentice? Because I'm pretty sure he had, was it Johnny Mitchell? John Mitchell, who used to be the media manager for the Wellington Phoenix.
John Mitchell and Nathan Greenham were his henchmen either side of him, and yeah, I think they came to one of the games. One of the shows was them at a Phoenix game, and we saw some of the behind the scenes stuff and that. And yeah, look, it was pretty cool that Terry was actually the apprentice, the Donald Trump of New Zealand.
Oh man, what a weird old time. Hey, 2015.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because that was a really difficult time for the Wellington Phoenix club, the fans, and I'm sure players like yourself, where you're literally having to go into bat for the club and their long-term future in the A-League, the Save the Knicks campaign. How difficult was that time for you and the players and the club as a whole, when you're literally fighting for your survival, justifying your existence to the A-League?
Yeah, tough. That was a really tough moment at the club. There were always cries from Australia to get rid of the Knicks and what do they offer, but they really came, really loud. These cries for kick the Knicks out in 2015, as you said, was difficult. We weren't sure if the club would be around the year after. They weren't renewing our license. FFA were really quiet on if we'd survive or not. And, obviously the captain of the team and fronting the media all the time. And I didn't have any answers, but I had to front it and try and be as positive as possible. And, I had players ringing me all the time, and obviously I was involved with the PFA, and they were asking what's happening. Do I know anything? And that was a tough time. But I think what we got out of that was Wellington fans really cared. There was an Adelaide game, and that's when the Save the Nix campaign really was at its strongest, and they turned out in big numbers, and it was amazing. We put on a really good performance, and I remember some of the other games, say Sydney versus Melbourne or Adelaide versus Brisbane. In the crowd, there was all Save the Nix banners from opposition supporters. So that was really nice. It was really touching. You got a sense that, okay, the FFA might be on the fence whether they want to keep us, but the other fans and the other teams appreciate us and what we bring to the league. So that was really nice. And obviously we got our license extension, which was fantastic. And but it was definitely a really dark and difficult time to manoeuvre through at the time.
Yeah, you mentioned that you were doing all sorts of media interviews, and probably I put in a few calls as well and got you on the radio, and you had no answers for us. So I apologise for that, Jared. But I mean, how much did that detract from your primary role as a football player and captain of the side? Was it a huge distraction for you?
I wouldn't say it was a huge distraction. It was something I probably would have preferred not to have dealt with. But when you're the captain of the team, that's part of your role. That's part of your leadership. And, you need to protect the football club. You need to protect the players. You always need to put the club's image at the forefront of your mind to make sure that, you're dealing with these difficult questions. And like I said, there were questions that I couldn't answer, and there were questions about payments early on with Terry Serepisos, and you just have to front them and give your best possible answer. And I think I learned to be a good politician at the time, because I was just giving straight bad answers and, giving the political answers all the time. So, like I said, they're the moments where I think I grew as a captain and I grew as a person, because, a slip of the tongue, or you get something wrong there, and the media are all over it, and they'll turn it and they'll twist it in to whatever the story they want to. So that was a moment that I really grew, and was really cautious of how I portrayed myself and the words that I said when I was interviewed.
Hey, previously I've spoken to Greenie and to Paul Eiffel about a number of the imports that the Wellington Phoenix have had on their books over the years, and you being a Phoenix stalwart for 11 years, you must have seen a few imports come and go during that time, some good ones, some weird ones, some wild and wacky ones. Johnny Chen is a name that always pops up. Is he the worst? Am I that predictable? God, Jesus. Is he the worst that the Phoenix had on their books?
Oh, he'd be up there. I don't know if you remember another player, Toto. Toto came to the club with a big reputation and was a major flop. But Johnny Chen was a funny one, because we did a tour of China in that pre-season, and from what I understand, it was kind of a goodwill gesture. Yeah, thanks for hosting us over in China, and we'll take one of your players just to say thank you type thing, and build a good relationship. So he didn't get many minutes. He wasn't the right player for us at the time. But there's been a few foreigners that have come that just haven't fitted in. So it's always hard. You just don't know with foreigners what you're going to get. But we've been fortunate enough that we've had many good ones as well. So that's been actually quite good.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some of the good ones. I mean, Paul Eiffel, he's right at the top of the tree. Is there anybody else who surpasses him?
Look, I think in my time, Paul Eiffel was definitely the standout. Greenie was sensational as well. He probably doesn't get the rewards that or spoken about as much as Eiffel, but he was instrumental to us in those early years. His work rate was phenomenal. I think if you look now, Ulysses Davila is right up there with one of the standouts. He's been so good for the last 2 years for the Knicks. We've had some other bigger name players that probably didn't live up to it. Guy Finkler was one that I'm really excited to, but probably didn't reach the heights that he did at Melbourne Victory. We had Carlos Hernandez, another one that had big expectations, but didn't quite get to where we wanted to. I thought Stein Hoesigans was a great one, the Belgian player that that we got. So there's been loads. You know, I could probably try and stay here for a while and rack my brain and think of more, but they're the guys that kind of stand out at the time.
Have you ever seen Dude, Where's My Car with Ashton Kutcher and Sean William Scott?
I have.
Do you think that Stain Heisinghams was one of the controllers of the continuum transfunctioner?
Yeah, that's not a match, yeah.
Honestly, man, like he's a dead ringer. He is a dead ringer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, we'll move on from Dude, Where's My Car? Great movie. How did it not win an Oscar, by the way? I mean, that blows my mind. Blows my mind. What were some of the biggest changes that took place your time with the Wellington Phoenix? Obviously, you enter, and 11 years later, you're gone. There must have been some significant changes that took place in your time there. What were they?
Yeah, obviously, I think the first major change was Terry. The ownership change was a really big one. And the lead up to that was really difficult because we weren't sure if the club was going to survive. We weren't sure if there was anyone who was going to take over. So that was a really tough time for us. And then the new owners coming in, like I said, Rob Morrison and the other 5 or 6 owners that came in. And there was a lot of unknowns. Who are these guys? You know, are they going to care enough about the club? Or are they just, you know, businessmen that see a business deal here? We weren't sure. And, you know, obviously it's panned out that they've actually been fantastic for the football club as well. So that was a big one. A change of coach is always a really difficult time. So Ricky Herbert leaving after so long was a difficult one. And also Ernie Merrick changing hands after that was a difficult one because you never want to lose a coach. You know, you form such a close bond with the coach, especially myself as a captain. But obviously in football, results determine whether coaches stay or not. And I guess the other really big change was Mark Rudan coming in. I must give credit for that season. The season before we had Darije Kalezic, and it was a disaster of a season. You know, the results on the pitch were extremely poor. Crowds were down. Commercial was down. The club was at a really low point. And the signing of Mark Rudan and the season that followed that really put the Knicks back on the map. We had a fantastic season. He recruited really well. Fans came back. Fans were proud of the club again. Sponsorship was up again. So for me, that was a really big moment because if we had another season like that season previously, you know, I really feared for the club. So for that season to happen and for Mark Rudan to come in and do that has now had a good platform for now what Ufuk has done for the club. And, you know, he's been fantastic for the football club over the last 2 seasons as well.
Yeah, Jura, we'll talk about Mark shortly, but first of all, those dark days of Darije Kalezic, I'm glad that they were only few in their number. But what was the main problem with Darije? Was it a case of him not knowing the A-League and how it operated and how to get the best out of Kiwi players and Australian players? Was it literally lost in translation? What were the issues as you saw them?
Yeah, something that I've learned over my long time in the A-League is it's always risky with foreign coaches. I think if you look at the entire history of every club, there's probably been 2, you know, really good foreign coaches that have won it. Lepatsky in the first year, and the Sydney FC coach later on. I can't remember his name, but yeah, they were probably the only 2 foreign coaches that have actually had success. So it was always a risk taking on a new foreign coach, and I think the problem with Darije was he expected so much more. Obviously, he'd come from Holland and coaching in Holland at quite a high level, and he just expected more from the players. And I think the sessions he put on and his tactics were fantastic. I actually learned quite a lot from him throughout my time, and his man management of players and how he spoke to the players was his biggest downfall. You know, I remember coming in after one of the games that we had lost, and he said, "Oh, look, I'm not even mad at you guys. You're just not at the level of the A-League standard, and you guys play at the level of Dutch under-15 players," and, you know, things like that. And I guess he just expected that players were so much better, and when he had to work on basics of the game, I think he lost, you know, a lot of respect for the game in the country. And, you know, I know now with Aussie coaches, they really focus on really basics, how to clear the ball with which side of the foot and passing on this side of the body. So I think it's proven that foreign coaches are a big risk because they just don't understand the dynamics of, like you said, Australian and New Zealand players and the man management that we need compared to maybe European players. So I think that was his biggest downfall.
How long did it take to rebuild the confidence of some of those players that were affected under Darije Kalezic's reign? Because if he's saying that they're literally not good enough for A-League standard, that must have been one hell of a knock to the ego.
Yeah, it was tough. And remember when Mark Rudan got the job and he rang me and, he said, what are some of the issues that I've seen at the club? And I said, honestly, your biggest job would be to rebuild the confidence of the players. I said, because we've taken a massive hit over the last 12 months. I said, so your main job, I said, we've got really good players. I said, but your job will be to build up their confidence. And he did that, throughout pre-season. We worked on a structure. He was giving confidence to a lot of players. He could see in pre-season how actually low we were. So he knew he had a big job ahead of him. But, he managed to do that. Like I said, he had a fantastic season. We played amazing football. Some players had standout seasons. Some moved on. Sarapisos to amazing heights and went to Bayern Munich. Roy Krishna had a Player of the Year season and Golden Boot season, and Dave Williams was fantastic. Steve Taylor was incredible, and he's still there now doing great things. So that was a great season. We worked really, really hard in pre-season to make sure that season was successful. But I think as much as people dislike Mark now for obviously moving on, he deserves a lot of credit for that transition to make the club successful again.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of those people who fell in love with Mark Rudan straight away. He was such a good operator, loved a yarn, and obviously he was getting great results on the football pitch with the Knicks. And then the arse fell out, as I like to say, with his move away to Australia, and he took you with him. Let's talk first of all about your departure, because for me personally and a lot of Wellington Phoenix fans, we were gutted to have lost you during those times. And what actually happened there to almost force you away from the club? Was it something that the club didn't do to secure your talents for the rest of your career, or was it more of a desire for you to head back to Australia and be closer to family?
Yeah, it was more a personal reason for me. It wasn't really a reflection on the football club, and it more came about that an agent at the time, Lou Sticker, who was kind of building the club at Western United, and who was a close friend of mine, and I kept in touch with him throughout my time playing. And when he got the licence for Western United, I congratulated him and said fantastic, and hoped he did well. And we just stayed in touch over the course of the year, just as friends do. And, I kind of wasn't sure where I wanted to head. I wasn't sure, for family reasons, if we wanted to stay in Wellington. We were at a crossroads, my wife and I, because we stay in Wellington and that becomes our life, or do we go back to Australia to be around family more? And the kids were getting to a stage where they miss their grandparents. They'd be at home crying sometimes because why can't we see our cousins and why can't we see our grandparents more? And that was really tough, and we fought for that probably for a few years. And I think the opportunity, Lou Sticker approached me and said, look, if you're thinking about moving away, then we'd love to have you at the club. And he was talking to me about the club and the ambitions of the club, and it was an opportunity for me to potentially go home and be closer for the kids as well. So I jumped at the opportunity. Obviously, it wasn't an easy decision. It took me a really long time, and I fought with it because I knew the legacy and what I had done at Wellington. So it was tough, but speaking to my wife and saying, look, we have an opportunity to go home now, back to Australia and see our family more, I thought it was the right time. I wouldn't have gone just to any club, to be honest. I wouldn't have just gone for the sake of going, but to go to a club that was to build from scratch, it had no players in terms of an identity. It didn't have values, a culture. And I thought, I want to see how good I can be in a different environment. I knew what I'd done at Wellington, but, even at my age, I wanted to know, can I still play and have an impact as a player in a new environment? And I wanted to know, can I help build culture and set a strong culture at a new football club and build values. So that really appealed to me on a personal level, to see how good I can be and what kind of an impact I could have at a new club. So that was my main reasonings behind it all.
But obviously you've been connected to the Wellington Phoenix for more than a decade, so your heart is in Wellington. So how hard did the Knicks actually fight to keep you there? What were they offering you as incentives to finish your career in Wellington?
Yeah, look, I kept in close contact with Rob Morrison, and to his credit, he was great in keeping contact with me, and he knew that I was considering going back to Australia. And look, the club had offered me another year, and I sat down and spoke to Tale, and he's a great guy. I knew him from previous footballing adventures, so I knew the type of person he was. I wasn't sure if I would play or not. I know he wanted to go to a back four, and I wasn't sure if I would play, and I didn't. I didn't know if I'd play at Western either, but I just felt that maybe it was time to go. I know when I was speaking to Tale that he had grand plans of this system, and I wasn't sure if I really fit into that. And Rob Morrison had offered me a life after football opportunity, but yeah, it was just something inside of me that I felt it was the right time to go. I'd given everything to the football club. I'd given 11 years service. I'd given my heart and soul to the club. My wife had as well, and yeah, it was just something that it just interested me a lot more, that I wanted to see for myself how good I could be elsewhere. That's all it was, really. I just wanted to test myself and go back to Australia and try myself in a new environment and be closer to my family, and that's basically the nuts and bolts of it.
Your departure from the Knicks is one thing, but Mark Rudan, after building the club up and giving everybody great hope, I mean, his departure was another massive blow. He's basically been painted as a bit of a villain for walking out on the Phoenix, but that isn't the case. Do you think that is a misconception of Mark Rudan? He's not the big bad guy that Wellington Phoenix fans and the Yellow Fever should hate?
Look, I think the fans, have a right to feel aggrieved. Obviously, Mark had a 2-year deal. I was coming off contract. Mark had a 2-year deal. But he also had a clause in there that the club had allowed him to have. From what I understand is the club said that if they're not happy with Mark, then they can remove him at any time. And he asked for that in return, that if he wasn't happy, then he could leave at any time. And he used that, obviously, to get out of his second-year deal. So he actually didn't do anything illegal in terms of trying to get out of his contract. There was the clause there that allowed him to do that. But yeah, the fans are going to be aggrieved because we had such a great season, and someone that they loved and someone who helped turn the club around was leaving. So they've got every right to kind of feel like that. But I think if they really dig deep, which fans don't, because that's not how they operate. But he saved the club, in my opinion. That season that we had under him, saved the club, because I'm telling you, we were at our lowest, possible place that we could be, off the field, on the field that season with Kalezic. So they owe a lot to him, but I understand that whenever a coach moves on, they're gonna be upset about it.
One of the features, Dura, or fixtures, if I can call it that, of the Phoenix return game into Wellington up against your Western United was the fan treatment of not only yourself but Mark Rudan. It was toxic, if I can use that word, in terms of what they did to Mark Rudan, but quite disrespectful to you, given everything you'd done. How did you feel about the treatment of yourself and Rudes that day?
Yeah, look, I think Mark knew what was coming, and I think we all knew that Mark was going to get a pretty hostile welcome back. I wasn't sure how the crowd would be receptive to me, and I think I was most disappointed the first time I went over and got booed every time, because I felt like I'd given everything to the club. I was the captain for 11 years. I always fronted up. I gave everything I could. My family gave everything to the club and to the city, and I think that was the most disappointing. Obviously at the end of that first game, I got a nice reception as I walked off, and obviously the final time that I played there in the game you just spoke about, I got a really amazing reception. And I know football, I know what fans are like, and they just want to win. They want their team to win. I almost saw it as a bit of a sign of respect. They don't boo the average players, and I think it hurt them that I left, and I understand that. And so I copped a bit of it during the game, but the reception after the game was something that will live with me forever. They were amazing. It was really emotional for me for several reasons. Obviously, it was going to be my last time that I'd ever play at Sky Stadium, and the last time that I'd ever play in front of the Wellington fans. So yeah, it was an emotional night for me. But yeah, I kind of expected that I was going to get booed for the game. And as a professional, you can deal with that. You just focus on your job and that. But yeah, it was actually a nice send-off, to be honest. It was a really emotional and touching tribute at the end.
That's really nice. I'll tell you what isn't nice. Besart Berisha, or at least that's the public perception, because he's I don't know, is it white line fever that he suffers from? Because you and he had so many running battles when you were with the Knicks and he was either with Melbourne Victory or whoever. Then all of a sudden, you're thrown together at Western United. What was that initial meeting between you two like? And did you have to sit down and bury the hatchet?
Look, I hated playing against him. I thought he was a grub, to be honest, in the nicest possible way I can say that. Me, Manny Muscat and Siggy, we would just have the biggest battles with him because he's a winner, he's a fighter, he's a scrapper. And we loved it. That was our game as well. And Siggy used to love mouthing off to him, and Manny would always get stuck into him. And we did everything we could to try and stop him because, let's be honest, he's the greatest goal scorer that the A-League's ever seen. And, then I remember Mark Rudan telling me, he goes, look, we're thinking about signing Berisha. And I was like, oh, man. I said, because I didn't know him at all off the field. And I was like, look, he's a winner. All I know is he's a winner and he can score goals. So, yeah, you know what? Mark said, would you send him a message? And I was like, oh, man. So I sent him a message and I said, Bess, it's Andrew Durante. We'd love to have you with the club. You've done fantastic things and we feel you'd be a great fit here. And he was great. He texted me back and said, oh, thank you for the message. Beautiful message to come from someone like you, blah, blah, blah. So when we first met, it was actually all right. And, he's an absolute gentleman of gentlemen off the field. Our families went out to dinners and lunch at the parks, and he's always offering to pay and making sure that my wife's always looked after, and he's an absolute gentleman. So it is absolutely 100% white line fever. He's just, when he crosses that line, he just wants to win. He wants to score. I've never met a player so sick and obsessed to score goals, even at training, and that's why he's been so successful. And I tell the young boys when they're doing a shooting drill, I said, look at him. I said, look how upset and angry he is when he misses the target. I said, you guys have got to be like that, and you can learn a lot from him.
So having met him and knowing how good of a person he is off the field, do you regret any of your behaviours against him when you went head-to-head with him? None.
I regret none of it because I was trying to win. He was trying to win, and he was just as dirty as we were. So, I regret none of it.
What was that one occasion where you were standing over him, telling him to get up, and he lashes out and picks up a red card? You don't even regret that?
Yeah, got himself sent off, got a 2-match ban, and then the Melbourne Victory lawyers got involved, and because if he missed 2 games, he was going to miss the first game of the semi-finals, and they didn't want him to miss the semi-final game. So their lawyers said that I grabbed him by the throat when he was down on the ground. They made up this big load of crap, this story, and he ended up getting off. And I had no right to appeal it or anything. I didn't get to have my say. So, that really frustrated me as well. But I knew that wasn't him. That was Melbourne Victory doing everything they could to make sure their star player played in the first finals game.
We haven't yet spoken about your international career, and it almost started out in 2010 for the Socceroos. Obviously, Australian born and raised, it makes sense that you would try your luck with the Socceroos, but 3 years later, you were playing for the All Whites. So I'm really keen to hear from you how things changed in that 3-year period. Obviously, you missed out on the Socceroos. They went to a World Cup in 2010. You weren't a part of that, but obviously your connection to Wellington and the fact that, you know, all of your kids are born and raised in Wellington, that must have contributed to your desire to wear the all-white strip.
Yeah, obviously, as an Aussie and wanting to play for the Socceroos, that was always my ambition to be in the Socceroos teams. And, you know, Pimber Beak, while I was playing for Wellington, he picked myself and John McCain into a camp, and you know, I'd been in a camp previously, but had never made the final squad. But this time I was in contention, and you know, I was in contention to play. And you know, I was on the bench against Indonesia at Suncorp Stadium, and I never ended up getting on, so I never took the field. But you know, Ricky said to me, you know, if you don't play, you know, I think I was 4 years in Wellington at the time. I said, if you don't play in this, or if you don't get selected in this next camp, you know, we want you to seriously consider coming to play for us with the All Whites. And at the time, I was like, yeah, okay. You know, I didn't think too much about it. But then I didn't get selected in the next camp, and you know, I think my time was gone with the Socceroos. I think I missed the boat. So Ricky was really, you know, persistent. You know, once I got my 5-year citizenship, he pushed hard for it. The players, so the Phoenix players were basically all the All Whites players as well, and they pushed really hard for me to come. They're like, come on, Jura, we'd love to have you. You know, you'd be great, blah, blah, blah. So the transition was actually, it was a big decision, because moving from Australia to New Zealand in that rivalry wasn't an easy decision, and I wasn't sure what it would look like. But to have the head coach and to have all the players, you know, saying, come over, we'd love you to do it. So once I got my citizenship, I think the next day, I think I got announced into the first All Whites squad and debuted against the Solomon Islands maybe a week after that. So it was amazing. You know, the more I played for New Zealand, the more comfortable I was. You know, I loved singing the anthem. You know, we had a culture guy come in and talk about the history of the All Whites and what it meant to play for the All Whites. And that was really powerful, and I loved it. And I really, really feel connected to New Zealand. I was so proud to sing the anthem before the games and represent the country. And still to this day, I feel very much a Kiwi. And, you know, it was amazing. You know, international football is the pinnacle of a professional, and that's all I wanted to do. So I'm grateful to Ricky that he gave me the opportunity to be able to do that with New Zealand.
24 A internationals you played for the All Whites, including World Cup intercontinental qualifiers against Mexico and Peru. You went to the Confederations Cup in Russia. You met Russia, Mexico and Portugal in that competition, and it brought you face to face with none other than the Coca-Cola hating Cristiano Ronaldo. This is like the one and only time that you've been starstruck in a football match, isn't it? When you came face to face with Cristiano and you had to mark him on the pitch. Tell us what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, amazing. You know, the whole Confederations Cup was an amazing experience. Any FIFA tournament, you're looked after like royalty. There's heavy security around, so it was an amazing tournament to be a part of. And yeah, to come up against Ronaldo and, you know, walking into the tunnel, like you said, I've never been starstruck or in awe of meeting a sports person or a celebrity, but I must admit, seeing him, you know, lining up in front of the tunnel, I was like, oh man, that's Ronaldo. Like, I'm standing right next to Ronaldo. Like, it was incredible. You know, I knew during the game I'd be in really close contact with him, obviously because of our position. So he didn't do a lot in the game in terms of causing too many problems, but when a cross was about to come in, or if he knew he was a chance to score, he came to life and he'd get that yard on you, he'd push you away, he had an incredible leap. So amazing experience to play against him and to come, you know, one-on-one against him. So, you know, that whole Portuguese team that we played against was fully stacked. They had everyone available for that. So that was a real, you know, because we played Mexico the game before and we gave them a real fright. And I think Portugal thought, hang on, we need to win this game to make sure we progress to the next round. So they played their best team. So it was a little bit of a compliment to us as well that they had to field their best team against us.
For sure. When you come up against Ronaldo and you're looking at him, and we've all seen pictures, we've all seen him on TV. Is he taller? than you think? Is he more ripped than you think he's going to be? Is he better looking than what's seen in magazines and on Instagram pictures? Like, what was your impression of the man?
To be honest, my first impression was, wow, he's a lot taller than you think. You see him in social media with his shirt off, so he's stacked, and he was an incredible specimen. Not an ounce of fat on him. He was so strong, so agile. There's a photo of him, me and him going for a header. I'm not even jumping. I think his knees are up above my head. So he's a freak of an athlete. He's still doing it to this day. I think even this morning in the Euros, he bagged a couple of goals as well, and now he's the highest goal scorer in international football, on 109 goals. So to be alongside him and to be up against him, he scored a penalty in that game, but from general play, like I said, not a lot. Blocked a few shots, which I'm pretty happy with. So, an amazing moment for myself and all the players that played in that game.
Did you get any keepsakes from him? Because I'm thinking that you'd love to swap shirts, but then you don't want to do it on the middle of the field with all those cameras watching, because then it's like little old Andrew Durante against the Hulk Cristiano Ronaldo. Just a little bit of physique envy.
Yeah, I wouldn't have taken my shirt off next to him, that's for sure. He would have dwarfed me. So, but he got taken off, I think, in the 70th or 80th minute, and then the players were looking for him to try and swap, but he got drug tested and he went straight in at the time. And Tom Doyle, Phoenix player, he got drug tested, so he was sat in the room with him, literally on a lounge next to Ronaldo, waiting to get his, do his drug test. And there's a great photo of him, of the two of them sat together, and Doyle asked for his jersey, but Ronaldo said, "Oh, look, this one's all dirty. Let me get you another one, and I'll come back and give it to you." But he never returned. But Bruno Alves, who's a legend of the Portuguese game, over 100 caps, I went to swap jerseys with him, and he said, "Yeah, let's do it in the tunnel." But I got dragged over to do an interview, and I was doing interviews for quite a while after the game. And I thought, I've missed my opportunity to swap with Bruno Alves. Mate, the guy waited for me in the tunnel the whole time to swap the jerseys with me. And I thought, what a legend. He could have easily just walked in and said, "I'll forget this guy." But he waited for me to swap the jerseys. So I'm sure he's got the Durante jersey hung up on his wall somewhere in his palace in Portugal. I'm sure of it.
Without a shadow of a doubt, Dura. I mean, he messaged me the other week, and he's really looking forward to the A-League final this weekend. Melbourne City up against Sydney FC. So, yeah, he knows all about your 273 games for the Phoenix. Don't you worry about that.
I'm sure.
What a sad guy Ronaldo is, though, standing up Tom Doyle.
Yeah, he was gutted. But Doyle's got a great photo of the two of them sat there, so I'm sure he's got that blown up, and he'll have that in his games room.
Obviously, Ronaldo's going to be one of the more difficult assignments for a central defender on the world football stage. But what are some of the other ones that you've really battled with? Like guys who have thoroughly tested you on the field, be it internationally or in the A-League?
I think the two standouts in the A-League are probably Archie Thompson and Smelty, both for different reasons. Archie was so hard to handle. He was always making runs in behind. He'd get the ball and he'd run direct at you, and he could score left foot, right foot, and he was always so lively. So that's always difficult for a defender to deal with. And Smelty was the opposite. Smelty, I remember playing against him thinking, I've got him in my back pocket. He hasn't had a shot all game. He's done nothing. It's the 89th minute. And then Smelty will just get a half yard and bang in the winner. And you're just thinking, how has he just done that? He had a knack for it. He was just so dangerous. Even if he was having an off game, that's kind of when you had to be more switched on, because you're like, he's done nothing all game. He's going to pop up with a winner. So he was amazing. His goal scoring record in the A-League is superb as well. And even what he did at the World Cup to score against Cannavaro against Italy, and it popped up in behind him. And he's a freak goal scorer. So they're two of the guys that really stand out as difficult opponents.
Dura, you've done so much in football, so much on the green turf around Australasia, but now what happens? Because, you don't have that to fall back on anymore. So what does the future for Andrew Durante look like? Some sort of role with Western United, but what does family life look like as well without football in it?
Yeah, so the initial future of myself and the family, we've got a caravan and we're going to take 6 months off football and just travel around the country. We're going to try and do an entire lap of Australia and just spend quality time with the kids and my wife. Obviously, footballer's wife, you think it's a fantastic life, and they get labelled as wags and everything, but it's actually a really difficult time. I'm away a lot. My wife's trying to deal with the kids, and it's just almost a reward as well to say, let's spend time together, let's make up for the time that we've lost, and just be together and have a great adventure and something we'll look back on in years to come and say, wow, what an incredible adventure. And I also think it's going to help with my transition from retiring for the game. It's got something that I'm looking forward to. I won't be sat in an office thinking, oh, I wish I was playing again this season. So it will help me take my mind off things. But when we get back from that, I have an opportunity with Western United in the football department to help with football operations, whether it be with scouting, recruitment, or helping build the culture and making sure the young guys understand what it means to play for the club. So, we'll see how that evolves. But at the moment, my main thought process is getting through COVID and managing my way through all these states that are starting to close on me. So we'll see how the journey unfolds.
Yeah, you might do a caravan trip around Sydney at this rate for 6 months.
It's looking like
that. I hope it isn't for your sake. Hey, do you think you'll ever come back to Wellington and have some sort of role with the Phoenix? Because I'd dearly love to see it, and I dare suggest that a lot of Wellington Phoenix fans would like to see it too.
I get asked that a lot. I definitely is not something that I would ever rule out. I know my wife would jump at the chance to come back to Wellington. She loved it so much, and yeah, maybe, I don't know. It's hard. You always have to consider the kids, and they're in school now and got a good network of friends. And I'll never say never. I don't know. In football, it changes so often, and the landscape can change so quickly, and opportunities pop up here and there. And look, I'll just say I'll never say never to that, because I just don't know.
Just lastly, Jura, and thank you so much for your time today on the Kiwi Football Fix. I know how I'm going to remember you as an uncompromising, no quarters given defender, wore your heart on your sleeve, and just an absolute good bugger with it. But how do you want to be remembered as a footballer? What's your legacy in your mind?
I think when I reflect on my career, a good person. I think I always played the game pretty fairly and, played it in the right way. And I was always conscious of my actions, as a role model. And I think I was a pretty good leader. I led the team as best as I could. I always protected the club's image. It's always hard to kind of judge yourself. I think fans and people outside are always probably good judges of how I portrayed myself and what I meant to them. But I think I'm a pretty good person who went about things the right way and just wanted the best for my teammates, and whatever football club I played for, I always wanted the best for. So that's pretty much how I kind of sum myself up.
I can't think of a better way to close down season 1 of the Kiwi Football Fix than to talk to you, Andrew Durante. Thank you so much for your time today. Well done on a magnificent career. Thanks for all you did for the Wellington Phoenix, and I can't wait to see what happens for you next. Hopefully your caravan doesn't blow a tyre when you go around Australia. Thanks for your time today, mate.
Yeah, let's hope not. Thanks, Goran. Appreciate you having me on the show, mate. It's been great to chat to you.